Let's surprise them with a handmade Christmas card this year. These easy DIY card layouts are going to be card layouts you can use all year round with all types of cards. I'm going to demo each of these cards for you today. Hi, I'm Lisa Curcio, and I would love to welcome you here to Lisa's Stamp Studio. I've got a free project sheet for you that's linked down in the video description below. It's going to lead you over to the pictures, cutting dimensions, and the supplies for all three of the cards I'm going to demonstrate for you today. All right, we're ready. Let's get started on today's projects. Our first card begins with a cherry cobbler card base. This measures 4¼ by 11. I did score it in half before you joined me at 5½ inches. I'll be using my bone folder just to reinforce that score line. Here on the front, I chose to use a piece of designer series paper, gorgeous double-sided designer paper. This is from the Traditions of Christmas Designer Series paper pack. There are beautiful foil accents on one side. We're going to use a nice simple pattern here for the front. I've got another piece of designer series paper here from the same package, again double-sided. This is a perfect square, 3 inches by 3 inches. I'm using my Stampin' Up! Paper trimmer, which I absolutely love because there's a clear cutting guide, and it includes both the scoring and the cutting blades, and they navigate up and down out of the way so that you can keep them on the clear track at the same time. The area here underneath the clear guide that's black is where the blade is going to travel. I'm going to place this here on the diagonal, aligning the tips inside that track. Once I'm happy with it, I'll go ahead and I'll close that, give this one more cursory check to make sure those tips are in the track, and then we're going to slice. Just before you joined me, I went ahead and cut some gold foil that was slightly larger than the square, and we're going to layer these pieces on top of here. I'm going to be using my silicone craft sheet. I love to use that here in the studio because it's going to keep liquid glue, hot glue, and any adhesive off my work surface. It's going to keep it all sticky free. I like to use that just in case I have a little seepage so that it doesn't mar up my desk. Foil is a little bit slippery, so you're going to want to take your time, and you're going to want to make sure that you don't put the glue too heavy near the edges so that it seeps out onto the foil. I'll be doing the same with this piece. You'll see me using the Precision Glue Press. This is from My Sweet Petunia. I have it linked for you on my website under Shop Craft Room Favorites. I absolutely love it because there's a pink stopper in the cradle, which is going to keep it from drying out, and it's really easy to dispense. And you can see how nice and thin you can keep the glue. Now that we have our pieces, let's move over here to the front of the card. I'm going to lay these out how I want them to be, and it's going to be in a square. I'm going to leave a little bit of space between them. Now, if you're like me and you're very persnickety about how they're going to look when they're finished, I want to give you a really great tip. Once you have them aligned where you want them, to keep them in place, you can use some low-tack tape, such as the Post-it labeling and cover-up tape that's linked in my Craft Room Favorites. Or if you don't want to purchase that or you don't have it, take one of your clear blocks and anchor that down so that it's not going to move. Take your pencil and then you're going to lightly trace around the outside perimeter of those areas. Now I know the clear block is going to be in the way, but as long as you get the corners, you're going to be fine on noting where this is going to go. We're going to flip these two pieces over now, and we're going to add dimensionals to the back side. These are pre-cut pieces of foam tape, which is going to allow you to balance these on the back side. I'm making sure that they are well balanced for mailing. Once those are in place, I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool. It's a dual-sided tool that allows me to add the paper piercing tool attachment. It helps me to remove the paper backings. It also has a putty tip on the other side, which is fantastic for picking up small sequins and embellishments. I'm going to leave one of these here on the silicone craft sheet where those dimensionals will not stick. And then I'll come over here to the top piece and I'm going to mimic the traced line. So I'm looking across the top and the bottom to make sure it's aligned as well as possible. We'll take the other piece now and we'll do the same thing here near the bottom. The space you leave here in the center is entirely up to you. You'll notice the one inside your project sheet has a little bit narrower of a space, but there's no right or wrong way to this. I've just erased any pencil lines that may be visible. Now let's work on the greeting. I have a piece of basic white cardstock here, and I'm going to be using the coordinating Cherry Cobbler ink pad. This is the beauty of the Stampin' Up! Products, is the color coordination. From the traditional labels bundle, which is the stamps and the coordinating dies, I've pulled out several greetings. And the one reason I have favored this stamp set this holiday season is because you can custom build your own greetings by mixing and matching the sentiments. I have the word "and" bright here. I'm going to ink it up in the Cherry Cobbler, and we're going to stamp that here. I've mounted the word Merry, and we'll ink that up as well. And this is going to get stamped here across the top. I went ahead and I used the coordinating dies to die cut the greeting, which left me this. I also die cut the second largest size here in the middle from gold foil. I'm going to flip the greeting upside down, and I'm going to add my dimensionals here to the back side. I'm going to center and adhere this now to the center of the larger label. Back here at the card base, we're going to attach the greeting. You're going to want to be very careful not to add adhesive along the center where it's going to fall within the diagonal. I'm going to flip mine over, and I'm going to add a little bit of glue here and a little bit of glue here to make sure that that opening is not going to be adhered. This now will get centered in the middle of those panels. Last but not least, let's add a very simple embellishment. And of course, you can skip this step if you'd like. I'm using the traditional sparkling sequins, and they come in 3 different sizes. I'm going to take one of the medium sizes, and I'm going to add that here at the bottom. Taking a slightly smaller one, I'll come up here on an angle. And then finally a smaller one up here near the top, and I'll press that in place. Now there's one other card I want to share with you that's the exact same layout as this one, but added one other thing to it, to the card inside your project sheet. The one on the left, you'll notice, has gold corners, and I created that very simply with 2 pieces of gold foil that are 1 inch by 1 inch squares. And all I did was adhere them behind the designer series paper before I adhered it to the card base. It's completely optional, but quite frankly, it really spruces up the card, and it's a great way to use up those foil scraps. Which one do you prefer? Either way, you cannot go wrong with this card layout. Let's move on to the next one. This next one is using Secret C cardstock, 5.5 by 8.5. I scored it in half at 4 1/4. Let's go ahead and fold that up and use our bone folder for the crease. I have a strip here of designer series paper. This is from Peaceful Gardens. This is going to be my wrong side for this card, and again, we're going to add some of our liquid glue. Since I don't do too many things straight, I'm going to turn this horizontally. This is a wonderful tip for you, because what I'm trying to do is create equal space at the top and the bottom, and that's going to allow me to shimmy this a little bit up and down to try to get it as equal as possible. I have a 1.5 by 1.5 inch square of designer series paper, same exact package, and I've cut a slightly larger piece of cloud cover cardstock. Again, that color coordination, that works great with the designer series paper we just used. Adding my liquid glue, and we're going to create a nice layer here. I created 3 other panels before you joined me. Those are going to get layered here on top of a square piece of basic white cardstock. I'm laying out the panels here on the cardstock to create a grid. Just like we did on the first card, you're going to want to carefully align them, but I've got some tips for you once again, this time not using the clear block. You'll remember I talked to you about the Post-it labeling and cover-up tape, which I absolutely love. I use this primarily to hold my dies down over my stamped image before I die cut it, but I also love it for something like this. Once I'm happy with it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take this and I'm going to attach this. This tape is very low tack. That means I'm able to reposition the pieces and remove the tape easily without having it mar the cardstock. Unlike the clear block where I know this is a smaller area and I need more area to trace, the tape works very, very well. So I'm going to come around here and I'm going to trace the outside perimeter very lightly around all the corners. Now, once the tracing has all been completed, you're going to go ahead and remove the tape. I save it because I can use it over and over again before it starts to fall apart. It works great with my dies, even once it's worn. I'm going to start with my first panel and I'm going to add liquid glue. I'm going to recommend that you start in the upper left-hand corner. Looking for those trace lines, I am going to line up this panel. I'm now going to move over and place the panel here to the right of it. The reason I'm doing that is I'm trying to align the top areas of these panels so that they're very closely related. So the trace lines should work very well, but if you're like me, sometimes you don't trace perfectly. So I'm looking across here at the top, adding my liquid glue, and this time we're going to work in the bottom left. Looking for those trace lines once again, and I'm looking here now on the left-hand side. And then finally we have our last panel here, and that will get a line here. This time I'm looking for the top and the right side to try to make sure that they're even. Once the panels are in place and the glue is dry, you can go through and erase all your pencil lines. We're going to come back here to the card base and we're going to flip this over and we're going to add dimensionals to the back side. I'll be placing them in each of the four corners, and I am going to add additional ones because this is a sizable layer. When making your handmade Christmas cards, it's important to make sure you use enough adhesive and enough dimensionals that the card is well balanced for mailing. With this removed, making sure the pattern is going in the right direction. This now is going to get centered here on the front of the card. My next step is going to be a piece of basic white cardstock and my greeting, which I took from Peace on Earth bundle. This is the stamps and the coordinating dies. Now you can buy them separately, but if you buy a bundle, you'll save 10%. Using the coordinating Secret C ink pad, I'm going to go ahead and ink up that greeting. That'll get stamped right here in the middle. To keep with the coordination with the rest of the card, we're going to go ahead and add a layer to this as well using the cloud cover cardstock. Remember, all the cutting dimensions for all the cards I'm sharing with you today are going to be in that free download in the project sheet, linked down in the video description for you below. I'm going to flip this over and we're going to add a few more dimensionals. With the backings removed, we're going to center this over these four panels. My last step was a simple embellishment, and in all honesty, the embellishments I used on the card inside your project sheet were completely gone. That's how much I love them. I have ordered more. So I've decided to make this one just slightly different. These use the neutral matte dots, and I thought the white ones would work very well for this card. I'll take one of the smaller ones and place them down here, and then the smaller yet here on an angle, very much like we did on the first card. And since this is white, I'm going to move this one over to the darker area of the cardstock and give this a good push. Just like the first card, while this one is extremely simple, I have one that's stepped up just a little bit for you. This one here on the left is inside your project sheet. And all I did was use the dies from the bundle, which you'll see here. I die cut it from white cardstock, and you'll notice it has a little bit of color around the wings. And I used a sponge dauber in the coordinating cloud cover ink just to give this a little bit of color because it was quite a bit of white on top of the layer. Added the die cut sprig to the beak and added a few dimensionals here to the panel. Again, you can keep it very simple or you can step it up. We're ready for the last card. This card uses basic white 4 1/4 by 11. I did score it in half at 5.5 inches, and just like we've done with the other cards, we'll go over and reinforce that crease with the bone folder. I'm using a piece of Timeless Plaid Designer Series paper. The patterns and colors in this package are abundant and they can be used throughout the year, and I especially love them for masculine cards. I've cut this so that it will fit entirely over the front of the card. So let's go ahead and let's add our liquid glue. Working with the silicone craft sheet underneath me to make sure it doesn't ooze out on my work surface, I'm going to align all 4 edges of the Designer Series paper to the card base. We're going to set this aside and we're going to work on the layer for this card. This piece is cut 4 by 5 1/4. Again, it's slightly different than the one inside your project sheet because I want to give you lots of options. We're going to do some stamping on top of here, and I've pulled out the word Christmas from the traditional labels. You'll remember that we've used this previously. The words are independent, like I said, so I'm pulled out just Christmas. Using the coordinating Mossy Meadow ink, I have the grid paper underneath me for a reason, because we are going to stamp off one layer of the ink onto the grid paper or the scratch paper to reduce the color. So I'm going to ink and I'm going to stamp. And now what that's going to do is it's going to make it a little bit lighter here on the cardstock. This is a great tip for you because I don't want you to buy different color inks when you can get 2 or 3 shades from one single ink pad. You're going to see that I created a line of text across the top. Again, I know that's very light to see, but let me talk to you about that tone I was referring to. If I ink it and I stamp once and I stamp twice and I stamp 3 times, you can see I get 3 different shades from the same ink pad. I'm going to ink this again, stamp off, and this time I'm going to shift the words and leave some space. This is going to allow me to make this look more like patterned paper that does a stamped background. I'm going to repeat this process now through the rest of the cardstock. Now that this is finished, you're going to see how it looks more like patterned paper. And this is where we're going to add some die cutting. From the ornamental Christmas dies, I'm going to pull out this solid Christmas tree image here. Of course, you could have used any of these different images for this card layout. Coming back to my Post-it and cover-up tape, we are going to center this here in the middle of the card. I'm going to anchor the die down to the cardstock to make sure that it doesn't move. I'm going to pass this through my die cutting machine. Now that this has been die cut, we can go ahead and remove the tape. And like I said, we can use it again. You can save the negative here for another card if you choose. I'm taking this and turning it over on top of my silicone craft sheet. I want this entire layer to be elevated here over the Designer Series paper so it looks suspended. Rather than using a whole bunch of dimensionals, I'm going over and using the foam adhesive strips. The strips are pre-cut and ready to use. You're going to place them near the outside edges. I prefer to cut versus rip them, and I'm going to come around the bottom edge and do the same thing. I'll take these small pieces and not waste them and anchor them around the die cut opening. I've anchored the foam adhesive strips around the cardstock. Now I want to give you one tip about those foam adhesive strips. Don't stretch and pull them to meet the edges of your cardstock. They're very long and they are thick. Therefore, they can cause some bowing to the cardstock. So just make sure you take your time and actually place them on the edges of the cardstock. With the paper backings now removed, I'm going to hover over the card front and center this the very best that I can, and then we'll stick that down. Now let's work on the greeting. With that same Mossy Meadow ink pad, I've pulled out the word greetings from the stamp set Words for the Season. Now this is also offered as a bundle with coordinating dies with some really great script greetings, which you can use for fall, Halloween, straight into Christmas and New Year's. But again, they pair together. I'm going to ink this up in the Mossy Meadow ink, and we're going to stamp that here. I used the long banner die and I centered it over that stamped greeting, which gave me this. We'll take that greeting and we are going to flip it over. You'll notice because this has been lifted that there's actually a sunken area here in the center. So you're going to be very careful about where you're going to place dimensionals or adhesive. So I want to give you a wonderful tip. I've got some mini dimensionals here. I'm going to remove the paper backing from one of these. I'm going to take an additional mini dimensional and I'm going to mimic the shape and place it on top of the one that's already been removed. And then I'm going to remove the paper backing to the top one. Using my Take Your Pick tool, I'm going to place this now in the center of this banner. If you want, you can place a couple on either side just to balance this further, but I found that this is sufficient. Just to extend my reach, I'm going to use my reversible tweezers, and I'm going to add a little bit of liquid glue to one side and to the other. I'll flip this around, and this now is going to go here near the bottom third of this opening. The dimensional now has provided support to the center so that it will not sag or get crushed during mailing. Also from the ornamental Christmas dies, I die cut one of those small stars using my reversible tweezers once again to extend my reach. Those are a craft room favorite as well. I have lots of products that I use here in the studio that aid me with my Stampin' Up! Products just to make life a whole lot easier, and I have them linked for you as well. These strawberry slush and pretty and pink embellishments have a little bit of gold down inside of the gems, and I love these for Christmas cards. I'm going to work with the small ones. I'm going to take one and place it in the center of my star. I'll place one on this right side of the banner and another on the left side. If you want to add more, by all means, you absolutely can. And just as I mentioned, this one is slightly different than the one that's inside your project sheet, which is this one here on the left. The difference is you're going to notice that more of that plaid border shows on this card versus this card, where there's only a 1/8 of an inch difference. No right or wrong way, it's just a matter of preference. Whether you're looking to create that open 3D appearance on a simple Christmas card, or perhaps you love the 4-panel, even with the little bit extra here on this card, or you favor the one here with the gold corners or without the gold corners. You can't go wrong when you're making your handmade Christmas cards this year. These DIY card layout ideas are going to be able to take you through the whole year to use with other stamps, designer papers, and dies. As always, I'd love to know your favorite. Pop down right now in the comments and let me know which one you favor. Also, just so you know, I come back and I read every single comment because your feedback is very important to me as I design new projects for you. Speaking of new projects, you're going to want to know all about this. We are already working on session 1 of the online stamping retreat. And right now you can join the no obligation wait list. This is going to give you first notice of when we open registration, but better yet, you're going to get a discount. So head over to onlinestampingretreat.com and learn all about this exclusive Fun Fold online virtual card event. We love to keep you in the know about all the sales and promotions and everything happening here at Lisa's Stamp Studio. Head over to my website and scroll all the way to the bottom and sign up for my free weekly e-newsletter. Not only do I keep you inspired, but you'll never miss out on any updates. There are lots of ways to support me here at Lisa's Stamp Studio, including joining my YouTube channel membership. You'll find all that information down linked in the video description for you below. Thank you so much for being here, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Have a great day.